Jonathan Garber, the master of disaster here at the Cubicle of Doom at Connections for Business. And I want to talk to you about a very serious subject this episode. My disaster helmet and my Godzilla. I want to talk to you about the hurricane forecast for 2010. This is the serious June edition of the 2010 hurricane forecast from William Gray at the University of Colorado. And the numbers are pretty interesting. They're predicting in named storms this year now 18. Last year they predicted 11 to 16 for this year. Now, as of June 2nd, it's 18. They're expecting 10, more than half, to become hurricanes, and they're expecting 5 of those, half of the hurricanes, to be major hurricanes. That's 3, 4, or 5. So that's a pretty big number. That's one of the biggest that I recall, and I grew up here in South Florida. Here's the other interesting numbers. They say that the prediction, the percentage of any of these 10 hurricanes hitting the entire East Coast, 76% this year. Now, for the last century, that risk potential has been only 52%, almost, a 50-50 chance. This year, they're thinking it's a 76% chance that one of these hurricanes, actually a major hurricane, so it's one of the 5 hurricanes that they expect to be 3, 4, or 5, to hit the East Coast. Just the East Coast, including the Florida Peninsula, 51%, whereas the average for the past century has been 31%. So clearly they're expecting really elevated risk this year. Now, they tell you every year there's some risk. Any year a hurricane can develop. So let me tell you what that really means. Not a lot. If you're an insurance company, it means a lot because you're working on actuarials. But if you're a resident or business owner in the hurricane zone, let's say South Florida, it doesn't really mean anything at all. Because the only thing you're really going to have to worry about is one hurricane. Just one major storm. The one that hits you. The other 9 that never make landfall, that hit somewhere else, doesn't matter. You have to be prepared for that one that's going to hit. And if we prepare for the worst case scenario, a category 5, for example, everything else becomes easy. That's why I ask people, what would you do if Godzilla steps on your building? In other words, completely obliterates your business in an instant. If we answer that question, then a hurricane becomes kind of easy. I'll give you another perspective. A few years ago, we were hit by Hurricane Wilma. Hurricane Wilma was barely a Category 2 storm, but it accrued billions of dollars in damages, not in buildings, but in lost revenue to businesses. We had over 2 weeks of power outage on average for Broward County. From a barely Category 2 storm, they're calling major storms 3, 4, and 5. Now I'll tell you this, even the smallest storm can spawn tornadoes around the eye. If a hurricane has 75 mile an hour winds to be a Category 1, but a tornado's 150 to 250 mile an hour winds, even the smallest hurricane can have the most damaging effects. And nobody has shutters or protection that's rated to 250 miles per hour except in co-location facilities, which we recommend. So my point is, read the forecast, keep an eye on it, keep a hurricane tracking chart like I have here in the Cubicle of Doom, but be prepared for the worst case scenario year round. Here's another anecdote. A couple years ago, 2 years ago actually, we had about 10 days of steady rain. There was no hurricane, there was no tropical storm, 10 days of steady rain. We had all kinds of roofs failing. We had underground utilities being completely flooded out and people losing power and internet and their DSL and their T1s and their phones. And we had roofs collapsing because the gutters simply couldn't keep up with that pace of water. So this is an event that was completely under the radar. Nobody said a disaster has hit South Florida and FEMA didn't come and nobody sent aid. But lots of businesses were without services, they were losing dollars, and some businesses lost their roofs entirely. Their equipment, all their papers, completely destroyed, just as it would have been in a hurricane. But there was no hurricane. So again, we prepare for Godzilla stepping on our building, we don't worry so much about those hurricane forecasts. This is Jonathan Garber, the master of disaster, reminding you to get prepared, ask the tough question, what would you do if Godzilla stepped on your building? And if you're comfortable with the answer, you're all set for everything else. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.